First time the Eagles have recorded 16 sacks and 10 takeaways. Um, how much better can this team get when they say, "Oh, we got to do this. We got to do this better"?
Well, I mean, you can always find things, John, and some obvious things. I mean, last two games they haven't been a very good third down team. It's been overshadowed by the fact that they've been a very good fourth down team.
Yeah.
Thursday edition of Birds 365 with your Mac and Mac guys, McDonald and McMullen. Joining us now, and because he doesn't work in front of the ocean like John and I do, a.k.a. a green screen, he can wear a green shirt and look good doing so. Paul Domowitch, how the heck are you?
Every day's a luau, Jody.
The green is removed from our wardrobe, Domo. Not that I would go with a lot of green in general, but all there is green space in front of your built-up Eagles. But there's one guy I know who won't put them number one atop his power rankings. What's that?
Oh, no, there's more than one. We went to Johnny Mac.
I know.
There's a bunch.
It's for a fact, Jody. Come on.
Well, they got to show me a little bit more. You know, they got to. I mean, the Bills. I had the Rams to be even after they lost the first game up there. You know, the Bills. You got to show me that you're better than the Bills, and I don't think that's happened yet because they haven't really played.
Show you though. How can they show you? Because I keep looking for losses, Domo. Logical, because I don't think they're going to be the 72 Dolphins. I said I don't think they're going undefeated, but they're going to be favored. You know, I can't put unless injuries start to pile up and something crazy happens.
Yeah.
This is a week I would think. All right, this is a logical loss. Dallas coming up. You got to go cross country, but Arizona's not playing well. I'm like, they're just going to out talent this team. This is a good football team. So what can they do to prove it to people that they belong in the conversation with the Bills of the world?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're already in that conversation, but I think these next 2 weeks will prove a lot to people, especially Dallas. I mean, going against that defense, if this offense can be as productive as it's been against, against those guys in 2 weeks. But I mean, you know, they can't overlook Arizona. I mean, you're right. They're not a great team, but I mean, Kyler Murray is difficult to deal with. They've got a decent defense. They've got a decent offensive line. They just don't have skill position people that Murray seems to trust. I mean, he'll be getting DeAndre Hopkins back in a couple of weeks, and maybe that'll change things. Sorry about that. But right now, you know, I mean, you go out there, a road trip like that, when you're 4-0, you certainly can slip up, especially when you've got some injuries. So this isn't a gimme.
Damo, I said this yesterday, repeated it just last segment. The thing that scares me about this week is Kyler Murray, and not just Kyler Murray, the overall player, but the way Kyler Murray plays. The fact that he is a whirling dervish back there and breaks containment and gets on the outside and can absolutely move his feet up and down the field. The Eagles haven't played anyone near this, not even close. They basically played 4 statue quarterbacks so far. They might be great at it. They might be terrible at playing against a guy like that. Give us an optimistic bent. Tell us why, they haven't faced a player like him, but here's why they can stop a guy like Kyler Murray. What about the Eagle defense would give you that belief?
Well, because I think they have faced a quarterback like this a lot in practice. I mean, he's not Jalen Hurts.
We're talking practice. I don't want to do my Allen Iverson here, but Eagles practice, really?
Jalen Hurts doesn't have the. I mean, there are different types of quarterbacks as far as the style. I mean, Kyler Murray's more of an elusive guy. Jalen's more of a fullback, but they're both running quarterbacks, and so they're used to dealing with them. And I think that'll help them prepare this week for Kyler.
Well, you mentioned Damo. I agree with you. I think that DeAndre Hopkins suspension really affected them. And I look at A.J. Brown and what he's done for Philadelphia. You're like, Hollywood Brown, he's not a number one, but as a number two, he'll create some issues. So that puzzle piece will really help Arizona when DeAndre gets back, but the Eagles don't have to worry about that right now. You mentioned that offensive line. Their injury list is longer than the Eagles' injury list. And Rodney Hudson didn't practice, and Max Garcia didn't practice, and DJ Humphries was limited. I mean, they're really banged up. And if that's the strength of their team, they're signing centers off the street and practice squad. They had to sign a kicker, Matt Prater. It looks like they're in the same situation as the Eagles. They have maybe even worse injury issues. So other than Kyler, shouldn't they just out-talent this team?
They should. Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned that laundry list of injuries in the offensive line going up against what is now the number one pass rush in the NFL. I mean, a team that last year had the fewest sacks in French, since they started keeping the stat in 1982, 29, already has 12, 10, I forget what the number is, but it's first
16,
in the league,
I think.
Yeah. 16. Yeah. So, it's going to be, but they've also got to be, it'll be interesting. We talked a little bit ago about how you approach Kyler Murray. Well, you can't be reckless in your pass rush against him. You almost have to use kind of a must rush to keep him in front of you, to keep him from getting outside, because that's where he does most of his damage. So it'll be interesting to see how Jonathan Gannon approaches that this week.
Damo, it's a fine line, and sometimes it's almost imperceptible to define it. The difference between confident and cocky. The Eagles are confident right now. They should be. They're 4-0, and they've won. They haven't had to really sweat in the final 5 minutes of any game that they've played. If you want to say they could have given it up against Detroit, no, they didn't. They controlled the game with the last 4-minute drive and put it away relatively easily. But then there's cocky. And I haven't seen cocky yet from the Eagles in any of their quotes and the way the players are handling themselves. The team didn't get off to this kind of start last year, so we don't know how Nick Sirianni's coaching staff goes about handling the team playing as well as it is, and maybe a little overconfidence. Should that be of concern to Eagle fans that this team could get cocky?
I don't think so, Jody. I mean, I think both Sirianni and his quarterback are pretty good at keeping this team on a level, focused and not getting too cocky. I mean, all you got to do is look at. I mean, right now they're a phenomenal second quarter team. But I mean, if I'm Nick Sirianni, I'm telling them, hey, we're not doing much in the other three quarters, so we got a lot of room for improvement here. So I don't think this will be at least not at this stage, 4-0. I don't see it being a cocky team. I see it being a confident team.
I keep hearing about this nebulous standard down there, Damo. And you mentioned, the second quarter's been unbelievable, not much elsewhere. But I mean, they there's that offensive stat that their first team since 1970, I think, 4-0 with 400 offensive yards. How much better can it get? Defensively, our buddy John Gannode gave this stat out yesterday. You mentioned the sacks, number 1, 16, number 1 in takeaways, 10, number 1 in 3 and outs, 21. Second time in the last 52 years that the Eagles, remember, the Eagles, Buddy Ryan, Bud Carson, Upset Joyner, Blitz. First time the Eagles have recorded 16 sacks and 10 takeaways. How much better can this team get when they say, oh, we got to do this, we got to do this better?
Well, I mean, you can always find things, John, and some obvious things. I mean, last two games, they haven't been a very good third down team. It's been overshadowed by the fact that they've been a very good fourth down team.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last two games, they've converted just 9 of 30 third downs. I mean, that's not good. That's not a 4-0 team. But like I said, the fourth down success has overshadowed that. They haven't been great in the red zone. I mean, they've been mostly productive running the ball in the red zone. Jalen, over the course of, I believe, the number I have over his last 10 starts dating back to last season, only has last 12 starts has 6 red zone touchdown passes. Now, a lot of that's because they don't throw down there anymore.
Yeah, they just run it in. Yeah,
they run it in. So it's kind of skewed, but still, at some point somebody's going to stop them, and they need to be able to run the ball down there. He needs to have guys he can count on down there. So those are just two, and those were two areas that I felt going into the season that Jalen had to make dramatic improvement in: the red zone and third down. So, I'm nitpicking right now, but you asked me to, so there you go.
All right.
Well, real quick follow-up. Sorry, Jody.
No problem.
But because they gave this explanation on fourth down, I want fact or crap from Paul Domowitch, basically. Do you believe it or not believe it? And a lot of times they say, oh, we're in plus territory if it's 3rd and 5, try to get the 3rd and 1. We know we're going for it. So, we try to pick up a couple yards, and then it makes it easier on fourth down. You buying that, or Eagles just playing that up?
You know what? I mean, because if this were last year's defense, I would have Nick committed if he showed this kind of brazenness on fourth down, but they're not. I mean, I think he feels right now that they could do it from their own 30 and they'd still keep him to a field goal. So I'm okay with it. I heard people last week criticizing him for the decision not to kick the field goal when they were up 8.
Yeah,
okay,
I was one of those people. Yeah.
I was okay. I mean, I guess because I've seen too many blocked field goals that was my biggest concern. So I had no problem with even if Jalen didn't make it, which he didn't. Your defense isn't going to let them drive down the field. So I was okay with that. But yeah, I mean, so as far as I'm concerned, unless he does it like from his own one, and he probably will at some point, I'm okay with it.
All right, Damo, last year, the Cardinals lost their last 5 home games during the regular season, and they've lost their first 2 this year. I'm not going to put much weight on what happened at the end of last year because new team, a bunch of changes for the Cardinals, same exact as the Eagles. Mm-hmm. They've lost their 2 home games this year. They've won their 2 road games. Is it more home and road, or is it more the fact that they played the Chiefs and the Rams at home, and they played beatable teams on the road? And guess what? They lost to the Chiefs and the Rams, but they beat the beatable teams on the road. Isn't it level of opposition much more than location with the Cardinals?
It probably is, Jody. But as someone who's like John has made many visits to Cardinals games in Arizona. I mean, most of their fans, you have to check for a pulse. So there's not really a home crowd advantage that they're getting there. Yeah. There'll probably be more Eagles fans in Phoenix this week than Cardinal fans out there. So that probably plays into it, but it's more the caliber of competition as far as the numbers this year.
Yeah. And, I look at the Cardinals, and they were the last unbeaten team last year, and things have kind of come off the rails.
Boy.
Yeah, if you think about 9-1, and you think about where they are now, they don't strike me as a contender. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too hard on them. What is it? Just people figuring out Cliff Kingsbury, people figuring out Kyler Murray? Why do you think they sort of regressed to the mean?
Well, I mean, you could start with Kingsbury, John. I thought he was a great tactician in college. I mean, that air raid offense, which he inherited from his name escapes me, the guy that is now in the SEC coaching. That he played.
I know exactly. It's escaping me. Jody, help us, air raid guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, that offense was, it was successful in college, and it could be successful in the pros. I mean, everybody has a version of it now, but I don't think he's a terrific coach per se overall as far as dealing with a team. I mean, even at Texas Tech, he wasn't a winning coach. So, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, they're in the NFC West, which is not where you want to be. If you're, I think if they were in the NFC South, we probably have a higher opinion of him right now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So,
Mike Leach, by the way. Mike Leach.
Mike Leach is
Yeah.
right. Kyler Murray, I just don't understand. I mean, I thought he was going to be a terrific quarterback. I mean, like we talked about earlier, he seems to be lost without DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, you've got Zach Ertz. Now, Zach's at the tail end of his career, granted, but why aren't you leaning on him? Why aren't you throwing a lot to James Conner? I mean, these are obvious things they should be doing that they're not. Instead, he's running around like a chicken with his head cut off.
Yeah.
So, you're right. I mean, I don't think, last year I thought they were one of the best teams in football when they were 9-1. Now, they're not a playoff team.
Probably not, but if they beat the Eagles this week, they'll start talking like they're a playoff team. So we've got to wait till after this week's game. Damo, a lot has been made. Johnny just mentioned it here with us that the Eagles are the best plus-minus team in the National Football League, a +8. Gotten a bunch of turnovers this year. Compared to last year, they're on a pace to just blow away what was a disappointing number for the overall turnovers for the year. I know that Gannon was asked about it the other day. Can you really coach that? Can you actually say with a straight, well, we coached them up to be a team that's going to get the turn? Or is that happenstance? That on any given year, things can go your way, bouncing could go your way. I think they've upgraded the defense some personnel-wise, but can you really expect to be able to continue to get as many turnovers as Eagles have gotten in their first 4 games?
Well, I don't think you can expect it. I mean, but last year, they made a big deal about takeaways being a cornerstone to Jonathan's offense or defense.
The Hitch philosophy.
That's right. The hit. I could not remember the word. And they were awful. I mean, they did not get any, I mean, the difference this year, I think, is the pass rush. They were helped this week by the fact that Trevor Lawrence can't hold on to a ball in the rain.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, Hassan Reddick is a terrific strip sack artist. They're putting pressure on quarterbacks. That's where most of your fumbles come from. And that pressure also is resulting now in bad decisions and badly thrown passes, which is helping your secondary. That interception last week by Bradbury was a thing of beauty. I mean,
he baited him. He baited him.
Not only that, but as Nick pointed out, he looked like a wide receiver making the interception in the rain. He dives, he catches it, and then he has the wherewithal to turn his body so that the ball doesn't hit the ground. Yeah. Bradbury's been a huge pickup. I didn't think he'd be this big make this big a difference. I got to credit Howie. I hate to say it, but the man is. I mean,
right now, he
seems to be a slam dunk for the executive of the year if this team continues on this pace.
Yeah. He had a very good offseason. I think there is something, and I asked JG about that this week, in that there are guys who have a knack, and you mentioned Hassan Reddick, for taking the football away. He's a strip set. Yeah. He's led the NFL over a 3-year period, or he's tied for the lead. James Bradbury is a great zone corner. He can bait quarterbacks into throwing the football. There's a knack. If you think about, I've been talking about that this week, Damo. Everybody talks about A.J. Brown, and they're right. The difference he's made for this offense, sort of the dominoes fall into place. Well, think about Hassan Reddick on the defense. Last year, that was Jannard Avery. That might be a bigger upgrade
or
at that position.
Or
what?
Or Derek Barnett.
No, they're playing different positions. He's playing Jannard Avery's position. Josh Sweat's playing Derek Barnett. As that overhang player, that is a huge upgrade. I mean, and you go from a guy who's not giving you anything to a guy who leads the NFL in strip sacks. That's
let's not forget. I mean, a big difference here is Jonathan Gannon, who was incinerated last year for not blitzing, is blitzing a lot this year. Not a lot per se by the standards of some guys and defensive coordinators in the league, but he's blitzing about 25% of the pass plays, which is quite a difference from last year. And he's already, 3 of their interceptions have come on blitzes. some of those strip sacks have come on blitzes. So, that's been another change besides the additions in personnel with Reddick and Bradbury that we're seeing this year in this defense.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned about Kyler, and this is interesting, the mush rush. Why does nobody try that against Jalen Hurts? Like if I'm a defensive coordinator and I go, what am I going to take away from the Eagles? That's a difficult question right now. If you try to take AJ, Devonta's going to kill you. You try to take both of them away, the Dallas Goedert's going to kill you in the middle. They can run the football, 200 yards against the number 1 ranked run defense. I would still lean towards keeping Jalen Hurts in the pocket or flushing him left and making him beat me. Why don't more people try to do that?
You want me to posit a theory? And then, Damo, please do so as well. It's the Eagles' offensive line. They're so good positionally and strength-wise that if you go mush rush, you're not going to get anywhere. Hurts is going to be able to stand back there and take his 4.5, 5 seconds, and he's an improved accuracy passer. He's just going to pick you apart. There are some teams that I think the mush rush would work great against, but you have to do so against a specific type of offensive line. I think the Eagles would live for a team to try and mush rush them. I think they just stand everybody up at the point of attack and go, pick and choose whatever you want, Jalen.
Well, here's a thought, and you saw last week when Arizona played Carolina. I think Baker Mayfield had like 5 passes batted down. Now Mayfield led the league last year in batted passes. He doesn't seem to be able to find passing lanes, and he's not very big. But neither is Jalen Hurts, which is another benefit of a mush rush. Is you're keeping your linemen in front of him, and they can keep their eyes on where he's throwing and get their hands up when he throws. Jalen had the second most batted passes in the league last year. Still has a couple every game batted down. So that's another reason to keep him in the pocket and go with, and sacrifice maybe a little bit of time getting to him. So, yeah, I mean, if I were a defense, I would certainly consider that, but mix in some things that would confuse him.
Yeah, and J.J. Watt, by the way, this week. Well, hopefully J.J.'s okay, but he came back, and nobody's better at batting the football down than J.J. Watt.
At least he had 2 of them, I think, 2 or 3 against Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's just that good. You're right. One other guy on the Cardinal roster that I have to at least tip my cap to and say you got to give him respect before the game ever starts is Budda Baker. I think he's one of the best safeties in the NFL and has been for years, at least from when I've been able to see the Cardinals, and I'm not breaking down Cardinal film every single week. He makes plays both against the run and against the pass. That's why he's one of the best safeties, because he's got the ability to contribute how most safeties do in both sides of the game. How do you think the Cardinals will most need him against the Eagles, coming up and being that extra guy in the box or in coverage against a guy like Dallas Goedert?
They'll mix it up. I mean, it kind of depends on what the Eagles, game plan is going to be. I don't think they're going to run the ball 50 times against Arizona. I think they're going to try to throw the ball more now that, the weather's going to be decent. It's going to be in a dome. So, of course, the weather's going to be decent. He's smart. He anticipates. So I would think they're going to use him a lot as a back a little bit, trying to force some turnovers. The guy on that defense that I don't want to say disappointed, but that I thought was going to be an impact player in this league, and it really hasn't happened. No, it's Isaiah Simmons.
Oh, I thought you were talking to Eagles. Yeah,
Isaiah Simmons. About him yesterday. Yep.
Yeah, we talked about him yesterday. Here's my thing. Here's my thing. I mentioned Damo yesterday. These hybrid guys, you have to have a coach that takes advantage of them. If you don't, I look at Hassan Reddick in Arizona. They tried to make him an off-ball linebacker. Yeah. Didn't work. I look at Micah Parsons in Dallas, and they were trying to make him, but people forget they were trying to make him an off-ball linebacker because he's too small. He's not long enough to rush the passer. Have that work out. Then they had injuries to Gregory and Lawrence, and they couldn't get to the quarterback, and they said, well, let's try Parsons. We got to get something. and all of a sudden they lucked into it. Simmons to me is that type of guy. He's tremendously athletic, but
Yeah.
you're trying to make him into something he's not. It drives me nuts with these coaches.
Yeah, but John, let me ask you a question. Which of those two Cowboys defensive ends would you have replaced with a rookie linebacker to play defensive end to start last
No,
season?
I wouldn't have either. But I said on this show, Jody, I thought he was an edge
It's not
rusher.
really lucking into it, is it?
It is lucking into it because they were trying to make him an off-ball linebacker. And if
What
see,
would you have started him at to start the
edge
season?
rusher, because I said it on this show, and I compared him to Aaron Donald, and I said people said the same thing about Aaron Donald, different position, but they said he was too small. Oh, he can't be in the three. And I said he was the best player in that draft. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but because I often say, hey, I also thought Ryan Leaf was going to be better than Peyton Manning. So I admit when I get it wrong, when I get it right, and I saw Micah Parsons, and I said, this guy's is an edge rusher, but he's 6'1", and he doesn't have long arms, and he can't be an edge rusher. Well, when you're that good, there are certain guys that break the mold. He breaks the mold. Yeah. And some of these guys, Hassan Reddick to a lesser degree is another example of that because he's not that good, but he was a terrible off-ball linebacker in Arizona. Then they finally say it's the last year. Let's try him at edge rusher, and bang. I don't understand these teams. At times.
NFL people need to get over the obsession with size and measurements. I mean, you don't need to be big to be a terrific edge rusher anymore. You need to be quick. And you watched what he did to that poor right tackle from Jacksonville last week. I mean, he probably was giving away God knows how many pounds and inches, but it didn't matter. I mean, he just went right around him, used both hands, spun, to get around him, and was in Lawrence's lap. So, it
works both ways. If it's maybe if it's later in the season and people are trying to run the ball, I brought that up and I said, well, you have Reddick out there, you have Kaiser White, you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. What if somebody can what if Derrick Henry comes in and it's one of those Derrick Henry 200-yard games and you're like, oof, he's just taking those guys for a ride. So it works both ways, but nobody seems to care about the running game until they need it in the NFL.
No, and they're going to have Jordan Davis in the middle, so that's going to be as the more snaps he gets as the season goes along. I don't worry one bit about the run going forward as far as he's on that team and healthy.
All right, Damo, I'm going to make a bit of a prediction here. The winner of this game between the Cardinals and the Eagles will be the team that is better at 2-point conversions, because if both of them come into the game with questionable kicker status, now they both signed kickers this week to their practice squad, and they're probably going to kick even if their regular kicker's out. Last week, the Cardinals didn't have a backup kicker, so they had Benjamin, their running back, kicking off, and they went for 2 every single time they scored a touchdown. I don't know if the Eagles will be up to confidence level with Dicker the kicker by the time we get to Sunday. Which team do you think is the better 2-point conversion team?
I'd put my money on the Eagles because of the fact that they could pound it in.
Yeah, they and Jalen Hurts is, he's better equipped. Kyler's more athletic, but he's better equipped from the 2-yard line because he can power it in. He can out athletic you and get it in that way. So Jalen Hurts is sort of the ultimate +1.
This kind of goes into the 2-point thing. I did a story for the 33rd team last week on, just how the under center snap is becoming kind of a dinosaur. And one of the most amazing things is watching teams use shotgun when they're down by the goal line, including the Eagles.
Oh yeah.
You've got the best offensive line in the league. Why would you not put your quarterback under center every time you're within 2 yards of the goal line?
I don't have a problem with it, Dombo, if I have Jalen Hurts. If I have a normal quarterback, I have a big problem with it. So I think it's, teams that are 4th and 1. quarterback sneak. One of the most frustrating things for me is 4th and 1 trying to run it wide at the goal line.
Yeah.
You're just giving the defense an opportunity. Eagles are a little bit different because they have such a unique quarterback. But a traditional offense, that is it's one of those head scratchers. At P Damo, read them every Friday. JAKIBSports.com is famed stat package, the 33rd team. Even though he's got the Eagles number 2, send your hate mail to Paul Domowitch, not me today. I'll leave you with the one thing the Eagles can't do well: special teams. And by the way, it's all special teams. They can't block for field goals. They get the kicker hurt, even though that's probably not their fault. Aaron Cepas is not punting it well. Britton Covey's the nicest kid in the world, but he's got no explosion as a returner. He's still better than Quez Watkins as a kick returner. They don't cover kicks particularly well. It's just not paying attention. When Dave Bipp was here and they had Chris Maragos and Brian Bremen, I say it all the time, they would focus on finding 1 or 2 really good special teams players. They don't seem to do that anymore, Damo.
No, I don't know what the problem is there, but it's not Britton Covey. I mean, he doesn't even have a chance when he's back there on returns. So far this has kind of gone. It's not gone unnoticed because everybody's been talking about it, but it hasn't cost them yet. I mean, against Minnesota, their average drive start was the 17-yard line, for God's sakes, and they managed to win.
Yeah.
And last week it was good because of the fact that they had 5, their drive start was like the 42-yard line, mainly because of those 5 turnovers, not because of anything Aaron Cepas did or because of anything Britton Covey did. So it's an area they've got to improve at. I don't know, I'm not crazy about this special teams coach. Dave Phipp was one of the best in the league, still is. Their blocking schemes, they just don't seem to be terrific. I've got to believe you can give him more space, and they're not. So I don't know what's going on, but it's going to have to be fixed at some point this season.
All right, Damo, last one for me is one of my faves, a hypothetical. Love hypothetical questions. Eagles win against the Cardinals on Sunday. Could be by 1, could be by 21, could be a squeaker, could be a laugher. The Cowboys win at the same time. Both are on the West Coast this week. Cowboys against the Rams in L.A. And Cooper Rush has a Cooper Rush game. Doesn't turn it over, throws for 200 and change, maybe a touchdown, certainly more touchdowns than picks. If he only has 1 touchdown, he'll have no picks because that's what Cooper Rush does. But the Cowboys win to get to 4-1. The Eagles are 5-0. They meet the week after in Dallas. If Dak Prescott is cleared to play and is healthy enough to start, does he start, or do we get 5-0 lifetime, 4-0 this year, Cooper Rush as the starting quarterback of the Cowboys?
Come on, Jody. No brainer. No-brainer. It'll be a no-brainer for Jerry Jones, who's pulling the strings there too. Dak Prescott will be in there in a split
NFL
second.
record. Nobody's got a better winning percentage than Cooper Rush, Damo.
All time. 5-0. Come on. It's never been done.
He can take that to the Hall of Fame with him.
Where Paul Damo won't be voting for him. Okay,
you're going to pound the table. You're going to pound the table with that stat, Damo.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, by the way, because I took some calls on my national show this week. Well, what happens if Rush wins next week against the Rams? First of all, good luck against the Rams, Dallas. And second of all, Dak, as soon as Dak is healthy, he's back in the starting lineup. We always appreciate it when he joins our lineup, Paul Domowitch. You can read his stack package on JAKIBSports.com. Catch him on the 33rd team as well. And when we ask him to come on Birds 365, he comes up big for us. Damo, thanks, bud. Enjoy the game this weekend.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.